Welcome to Chapter 3 of EVERNIGHT by Ross Mackenzie. Chapter 3 is called The Rats. What do we do? Lara! Lara did not speak because truthfully she did not know the answer. Before she could think properly, 4 lamps came bobbing around the corner. Their light shone upwards, casting strange shadows on the smiling faces of Cotton and his pals, making them look like goblins. They approached like a pack of wolves, and Lara and Joe retreated until their backs pressed against the collapsed debris of the tunnel. Cotton came forward and held up his lamp. "Lara, right?" Lara did not answer. Fear was crashing around her insides, but she was determined not to let it show. Not to Cotton. She clenched her fists so tightly that her fingernails almost pierced the skin of her palms, and she stared into his cold eyes. "Never known you to wander into our patch," said Cotton. "This is not your patch. None of these tunnels belong to you." Cotton smiled. "That so? Well, I say different." He nodded, paused, nodding to her toshing bag. "I hear you're one of the finest toshers in the city. What you got in there?" Lara shrugged. "Nothing." Cotton flashed a sharp blade of a smile. "Hand it over." Lara clutched the bag tight. A tosher's bag was a sacred thing, almost part of the tosher herself. Lara would no sooner hand it over than lose an arm or a finger. "Fine," said Cotton. He looked at his mates and indicated Joe. "Take the little man's stuff." They moved quick, and before Lara could react, they rushed forwards, one of them folding Joe in half with a fist in the gut, another grabbing his bag, and the third throwing him to the floor. It was over in a moment. Joe lay crumpled in the trickling sewer stream, coughing and moaning. "Joe!" Lara crouched beside him, her hand on his back. She pointed at Cotton. "You touch him again and I'll... A hand grabbed her arm, dragged her up, and Cotton stuck his face in hers. He wrapped a lock of her dark, tightly curled hair around his finger and brought out the knife again, brushing the edge of the blade against Lara's cheek. "Would be a shame to have to rearrange these pretty features." He stopped then, and his eyes were drawn to Lara's neck. "Hello? What's this?" Cold fingers of panic around Lara's heart as Cotton grabbed at a fine metal chain she wore around her neck. On the end of the chain, hidden beneath Lara's clothes, was a teardrop-shaped wooden pendant. Cotton pulled the pendant out and examined it. "You leave that be," said Lara. "Looks like cheap junk to me," said Cotton. His breath was rank with tobacco. "But maybe I'll take it anyway, just to teach you a lesson." Lara could take no more. She was beyond frightened, but her blood was on fire with anger. She brought her knee up hard. "Oof!" Cotton dropped the knife, but managed to grab her arm and twisted it almost out of the socket. She fell on her face in the stream and banged her head on the sewer brick, blurring the edges of her vision. Her dragon breath lamp smashed in the fall, and its light went out. The tunnel filled with harsh laughter, and she knew as she lay in the cold trickle of sewer water that there was no clever trick that would save her this time. No way out. The fog in her head dispersed, and by the glow of Cotton's lamp she glimpsed her scared reflection in the water. The smooth, dark skin of her forehead was grazed and painful, and her large eyes glistened with tears. "If we're lucky," she thought, "Cotton and his boys will take the toshing bag and go. But if they decide they want to make an example out of us, we're finished." In the darkness nearby, something moved. A black rat crept from among the fallen bricks and rubble It came close, right to her face. Lara stayed still as it stopped and sniffed at her, its cold nose brushing her skin, whiskers twitching against her. She blinked away the tears of anger and pain and fear and stared into the rat's shining black eyes. She remembered some of the old Tosha stories, tales about packs of rats so fierce they could kill the unlucky cove who came across them in the tunnels. I wish that would happen to Cotton, she thought. I wish you and your friends could teach him a lesson. And then something happened that made Lara's breath catch. As Cotton and his pals laughed at her, the wooden locket began to vibrate against Lara's chest, and at the same time a soft, musical whisper filled her head, delicate and otherworldly. The rat sat up and stared at her and twitched its head to one side. Then the sound died away, and the locket became still, and the rat scurried off into the dark. Someone wrenched Lara's toshing bag away from her. 2 pairs of hands dragged her up, held her in place as Cotton grabbed his knife and wiped the muck off on Lara's clothes. Light from his lamp shone on the blade as it came up towards Lara's throat. Then Cotton became very still. What's that sound? Lara half closed her eyes, straining to hear. There was something. A layer of noise beyond the distant rush of the stream and the storm. Something familiar. Rats! It's rats, Vin! They came quickly, dozens of them, hundreds, so many that the floor of the sewer was a carpet of twitching bodies and tails. The rats ignored Lara and Joe, went straight for Cotton and the others, swarming on them, climbing and scratching and biting. Cotton and his boys were yelling and screaming, batting rats away, shaking them from their hair and clothes. They turned and ran, the 4 of them, stumbling over the chasing rats, bouncing off the sewer walls. Lara watched, jaw agape, as they disappeared down the tunnel, until the light from their lamps was gone and the sound of their shouting had died away. As Joe sparked his lamp, something brushed against Lara's foot. A single rat stared up at her, whiskers twitching, and her hand felt for the locket under her clothes. I banged my head, she thought. I banged my head and imagined my locket came to life. That's what happened. Lara? Yeah, Joe? What in hell's teeth just happened? Lara shook her head. The sewer stream rumbled in the nearby tunnels. I haven't a clue,